Well, to Ukraine now, where international tensions between Russia and the West are playing out. The majority of the attention right now is focused on the Crimean Peninsula. Ukraine's interim government is sending troops into the area to guard the country's defense bases, though they have reportedly been instructed not to use force for fear that it could lead to an all-out war. Meanwhile, Russian and European officials are meeting to discuss a way to move forward during this crisis. For more on the diplomatic actions taking place, here's RT's Egor Piskunov.
Well, the meeting between the foreign minister and the Russian president, its aim was basically for Mr. Lavrov to explain the current international diplomacy around the situation in Ukraine, including Washington's latest proposals and why they don't suit Russia. And according to Mr. Lavrov, the main reason for that is that the document passed over to Russians from the Americans is based on assumptions which Moscow simply cannot accept.
The US Secretary of State gave me a document in which we found a concept that we are not very happy with, because everything has been formulated as though there is an actual conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and our partners want us to base our actions on the situation created by the coup and take the steps that they deem appropriate in this situation.
So far, Moscow hasn't officially recognized the new authorities in Kiev after the violent way they came to power there. Also, the Russian foreign minister was supposed to personally meet with U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry in Moscow, but according to Mr. Lavrov, Mr. Kerry canceled his visit just this Saturday. Also, the foreign minister added that Russia has prepared its proposal on ways of resolving the current situation in Ukraine, which is based on returning the situation there to the framework of international law, and also said that it should be accepted by all groups of Ukrainian society.
That was RT's Egor Piskunov. Now, meanwhile, NATO has given the go-ahead on Monday for reconnaissance planes to fly around Poland and Romania's borders with Ukraine. This as people within Ukraine are still divided about what to do with their own future. RT's Peter Oliver brings us this report from the ground in Ukraine.
What we're seeing right now in Donetsk is there are a group of riot police outside of the local government headquarters. They're barricading the entrances to those headquarters, and this is after we saw large groups of people demonstrating not just here but in other cities around the east of Ukraine, in Lugansk, also in Kharkiv, also in Dnipropetrovsk. We've seen the similar type of demonstrations, people who just aren't accepting the rule of the interim government that have put themselves into power in Kiev. They're not happy with how that government is currently ruling the country. They're not happy at what they see as the putting in place of oligarchs into key positions of power. And this is a very important part of the country. It's one of the biggest economic centres. It's one of the biggest industrial centres. So people are very concerned about what's being done in Kiev and how it will affect them here, and what they need to do about that in the future. But the situation is that we are seeing demonstrations against the interim government that have been put in place in Kiev. And, well, some of those demonstrations, people are very upset about what they're seeing.
That was RT correspondent Peter Oliver.